You already know what time it is. That's right. It's time for the most iconic mass extinction of all time. The dinosaurs. The asteroid. Ooh la la. Well, it sounds like something out of a Hollywood hit. This mass extinction was devastating, and the evidence we have for it is undeniable. The proof is in the pudding. You might be familiar with it to some extent, and it's absolutely mind-blowing once you take a closer look at how the pieces played out. So, before we get into it, quick facts first. You know the drill. Extinction is typical. Changes in our planet lead to lineages being left behind. It's a fact of our planet. But big changes leading to massive amounts of species disappearing is not typical. Throughout Earth's history, there are 5 famous mass extinction events, called the Big Five. In each one, more than 70% of life on Earth died out. In this series, we're exploring the causes and effects of the Big Five, one by one, to lay out what we know about mass extinctions of the past, so we can prevent another one. Right now, rates of extinction are so high that we might be on the verge of a modern mass extinction. Experts predict that if this trend continues, by 2050, about half of all species could be threatened with extinction. Let's take a look into our past and see what we can learn about the ones before. This time, the most famous of the Big Five, the one that ended the age of the dinosaurs, the Cretaceous mass extinction. The Cretaceous is the third period of the Mesozoic era, also known as the Age of the Reptiles. It is a long one, lasting from about 143 to 66 million years ago. Back then, the Earth kind of looked like it does today. Pangea had fully broken apart, and the continents and oceans were pretty similar to where they are now, especially towards the end of the Cretaceous. This time period was also very warm, with lush forests, even in the polar regions. This time was also peak Age of Dinosaurs: Tyrannosaurus, Triceratops, Velociraptor, Spinosaurus, etc. Most of the fan favorites are from the Cretaceous. There were dinosaurs on every continent and even in the sky, with a huge diversity of early birds. Also in the sky were pterosaurs, including the largest flying animals of the time, like Quetzalcoatlus, with its 30-foot wingspan. There were also crocodiles, turtles, snakes, frogs, and lots of familiar bugs like butterflies and wasps. Mammals were crawling around and digging and swimming around in the Cretaceous too. They were mostly small, living in the shadows of the dinosaurs. They were very successful. The world was also witnessing the rise of the angiosperms, flowering plants. This group includes most of the plants that share our world today. They didn't get their start until the Cretaceous, but then very quickly took over the world. Down in the oceans, there were torpedo-shaped belemnites and spiral-shaped ammonites, as well as giant sea turtles and marine reptiles like plesiosaurs and mosasaurs. Cousins of clams called rudous bivalves were building reefs that were home to a lot of marine creatures. The end of the Cretaceous period is one of the most famous parts of the geologic record. 66 million years ago, nearly all of that diversity disappeared. 75% of species vanished, including nearly all of the dinosaurs. In places all around the world, there's an actual line of sediment that marks this event. You can actually touch it with your hands. For a long time, this was a huge scientific mystery. Once again, a mass extinction doesn't happen for no reason. Paleontologists knew that something had completely destroyed global ecosystems, but they didn't know what. There were lots of hypotheses, but no solid answers. In the 1980s, a team of scientists identified high concentrations of the chemical iridium in those end Cretaceous layers all around the world. They also found shocked minerals, which are minerals that have been subjected to incredible heat and pressure. We find minerals like that at nuclear testing sites. Both iridium and shocked minerals are potential side effects of an asteroid impact. At the time, lots of other scientists thought the idea of an asteroid causing a mass extinction was far-fetched, especially without more evidence to support it. But it wasn't long before they found the crater. Seismic scanning and underground drilling in the Yucatán Peninsula in Mexico revealed a giant bowl-shaped feature buried deep beneath the surface. It has all of the features of an impact crater, and it's about 120 miles across. Based on the size of the crater, geologists estimate it was made by an asteroid at least 6 miles wide. And this crater sits in the geologic record at exactly the end of the Cretaceous period. How's that for more evidence? Since then, scientists have been putting together a detailed picture of what happens when a giant asteroid crashes into Earth. The first thing that happens, obviously, is a huge explosion. The blast would have totally wiped out any environments remotely near the impact site. And farther out, scientific simulations of the event predict that burning debris would have superheated the atmosphere, baking animals and setting plants on fire. Some fossil sites from this time include charcoal deposits, potential evidence of widespread forest fires. And the shorelines around the world feature massive deposits of churned up ocean sediments from the end of the Cretaceous, left behind by enormous tsunamis kicked off by the impact. So the hours and days immediately after the strike were apocalyptic, especially especially in regions close to the impact. But it didn't end there. The impact launched mountains of ash and soot, clouding the atmosphere and blocking light and heat from the sun. Changes in the fossil record and mineral chemistry immediately following the asteroid impact provide evidence of a worldwide cold snap. Years of darkness and cold temperatures would have been devastating for photosynthesizers like plants and plankton, and that would have destabilized entire ecosystems, since so many other species rely on those photosynthesizers to form the base of the food web. Gradually, all of that dust settled out of the atmosphere, leaving behind that telltale end Cretaceous sediment layer in the geologic record. But even that wasn't the end of it. The asteroid impact not only vaporized the asteroid itself, but also the rocks that it landed on, which included lots of carbonate rocks like limestone. When you vaporize carbon-rich rocks, you fill the air with carbon dioxide. And that carbon dioxide lingers in the atmosphere a lot longer than those earlier dust particles. And we know very well what happens when you blast a bunch of CO2 into the atmosphere. CO2 is a greenhouse gas, traps heat in the air. If CO2 levels rise enough, the Earth's temperature starts to increase, which stresses out ecosystems, changes weather patterns, causes rising sea levels. After the brief cold snap, the patterns in the fossil record reverse, reflecting warmer temperatures that persisted for a much longer time. CO2 from the atmosphere also seeps into the oceans, forming carbonic acid, which interferes with marine creatures' ability to maintain their shells and skeletons. In some parts of the end Cretaceous fossil record, paleontologists have documented ancient plankton with their shells partially dissolved by this process of ocean acidification. So, to recap, giant asteroid strikes, bang, followed by hours of tsunamis and fiery death. Then, years of cold and darkness as the skies are filled with dust. And then, thousands of years of global warming and ocean acidification thanks to the CO2 lingering in the atmosphere and oceans. Life on Earth is great at adapting to changes in the environment, but this was a lot of really intense changes, one right after the other, and that was just too much. Everything that survived the short-term effects was left with broken ecosystems, limited food, and harsh conditions all around. If you've been watching through this whole series, you'll know that this makes the Cretaceous extinction unique among the big five. It's the only mass extinction primarily caused by an asteroid impact that we know of. That wasn't even the only thing going on at the time. During the late Cretaceous, there was also a trend of falling sea levels, which was rearranging habitats along the world's coastlines. And in India, the end of the Cretaceous is marked by massive deposits of lava rock, evidence of extensive volcanic activity. Those volcanoes would have also been pumping CO2 and other gases into the atmosphere, as they do, as they have in other episodes. The shifting seas and volcanic eruptions might not have been enough to cause a mass extinction by themselves, but they would have made ecosystems unstable, making them less resilient to the effects of the asteroid impact and making it more difficult for them to recover afterward. Today, all of this chaos and destruction is recorded in a thin layer of rock and sediment that marks the end of the Cretaceous period, the end of the Mesozoic era, and the end of the age of reptiles. The flying pterosaurs and the aquatic mosasaurs and plesiosaurs disappeared completely. So did the spiral shell ammonites, the torpedo-shaped belemnites, and those reef-building bivalves. Dinosaurs vanished almost completely, with only one group surviving: birds. And even birds lost almost all of their diversity in this extinction. It's a similar story with mammals. They survived, but not without massive losses. There's been lots of research into this event, plus we have a pretty good fossil record from the time. So paleontologists have been able to identify some interesting trends in which species survived and which ones didn't. For one thing, all of the survivors were small. Basically, everything bigger than a large dog went extinct. We see the same trend in struggling ecosystems today. Bigger animals need more food and resources, so they're often the first to fall in times of scarcity. Many of the surviving animal species were omnivores, eating both plants and meat, or detritivores, feeding on carcasses and organic remains. These animals would have had an easier time finding food compared to dedicated herbivores or carnivores. Ocean and land ecosystems got hit really hard, but freshwater ecosystems seem to have fared better. This is probably because most land and ocean ecosystems mainly rely on photosynthesizing plants and plankton, while freshwater ecosystems also get a lot of resources from detritus running off the land. During this extinction, plants and plankton were in short supply, but organic leftovers were plentiful. In total, only about 25% of Earth's species survived this event. Some of them survived because they had a lifestyle or some adaptations that made them better suited to the apocalypse. Others survived because they got lucky that their ecosystem or their food source happened to be spared. This extinction set the stage for the world as we know it. The 66 million years since this event are known as the Cenozoic era. The survivors of the end Cretaceous went on to evolve, diversify, and fill the empty ecosystems. Flowering plants built rainforests and grasslands. Birds filled the skies again. New groups of insects and fish and reptiles flourished. And our own group, the mammals, spread across the land, trees, seas, and skies. Since the end of the Mesozoic era, the Earth has experienced a thriving age of mammals, until the next mass extinction. This is the 5th episode in a 6-part series on mass extinctions. Make sure to follow Colossal's YouTube channel for the next and final episode, where we're going to look at the state of the world today and see why scientists have started talking about a 6th mass extinction. See ya!